This video is going to be my reaction to the Ravens 30-3 win over the Washington Commanders on the road. This is just a very rare situation. A preseason side of the ball, defense to play this way. What I mean is, it seems like no matter who Zach Orr puts in the game, secondary position, they make plays. The inside linebackers, unselfish. They appear to be guys that are cohesive when working together. There's pairings that are being utilized a lot, if you ask me. I think Zach Orr's defense has allowed 32 points over the 3 games in the so many guys at all 3 levels of the making big plays. At some point, you just find yourself being appreciative and thankful for the amount of talent and depth they've collected on defense. In this case, most of it being second and third string guys. Additional to that, if you're going to go to a preseason game, at least on the Ravens defensive side, right, the young defensive players, their effort, enthusiasm, their execution, they're going to give you your money's worth. I think this one was a fun game to watch, even though the Ravens offense is a different story, right? In the preseason, at least, makes me excited about what we're going to see in the regular season because in 2024 that dynamic was totally flipped. Obviously, Lamar and Derrick Henry, so many guys making big plays, impact stuff on the offensive side, while the defense came out struggling. If we are to glean anything from this season, it's that Zach Orr and the defensive staff are in a totally different place than you would think a year ago, just based upon how everyone they put in the game does their job defense. I'll let some stats flow through here. I will talk about a little bit about. I watched a Commanders stream, and I have to tell you, it was pretty fun listening to Brian Mitchell. He was a player that I enjoyed watching years ago. Also, the announcers could correctly identify formations, which was a nice change up. Trips, slot, different things. They were at least able to give us accurate information. A little bit different than Sandusky paired with Rod Woodson, another guy that I really like listening. In any case, the guys who were rolled out there, the first 4 sessions, fantastic effort. It just seemed like everything that we rolled with safeties or moved or zone blitz stuff, everything's covered up. Even from players who maybe weren't even on the team, I think like a week and a half ago. I think Ram got an interception. Zach Orr's side looked so cohesive at times, especially in the second quarter. I wrote down one of my notes. It almost seemed like we had 12 players on the field. 4 turnovers, ended up winning 30-3. The offense was really effective early on. I don't know about you, but I'm really super excited to see the offensive line film. I think we opened the game with either 8 or 9 consecutive runs from Rasheen Ali or Ernest Johnson. So I think the offensive line played well, at least early in the run game in particular. Had a bunch of 3rd and 2s created. So to me, Todd Monken probably was trying to limit the exposure of the quarterbacks to obvious passing situations, create as many 3rd and short as possible. We're only up 7-0 after the first quarter, but I don't know about you. It felt like the gap was larger. It felt like the dam was getting ready to break, and sure enough, it did. Turns into a 17-0 lead, almost 4 minutes into the second quarter. Cooper Rush was really in control, seemed to be getting things executed. 5 for 5 passing. I think the defense total wipeout early, right? We held them to a 53-yard field goal in their first 3 possessions, and that one ended up being wide left. The interception from JAD, I'll talk about him and Simpson. They stuck out to me. Don't get me wrong, Keon Martin's pick six, amazing. Some of the effort from other guys, Graham's interception late. But JAD and Simpson, just to me, watching them out on the field, they look like guys who didn't belong. To make a comparison, they look like Tylan Wallace does, plays in the pre. I know that Wallace was super efficient last year as a receiver in terms of target catches to targets, but in the preseason it's even worse. I want to say in the last 2 years he's like 9 of 10 targets, or maybe 8 of 9, something like that, catches to targets. Simpson and JAD, same thing. JAD had 2 PDs early, gets the interception early second quarter. It's tipped by Simpson. Simpson appears to be in man, but he had the awareness to get his hands on the ball. JAD settles under it. Just those guys are playing at a high rate of speed, and it looks like things are kind of too easy for them. We had gotten 2 offensive touchdowns by that point before the JAD pick, and then we put Leary in the game in place of Rush. Obviously, the offense wasn't nearly as effective. After that interception, we settled for a field goal to make it 17-0. Eventually, in that second quarter, man, a really cool reaction by Keon Martin. Of course, he led off the Dallas game, right, with a sack that generates a safety in the end zone. against the Cowboys. He plays the flat. It looks like maybe it's a cover two, but I think JAD is to that side, and JAD kind of stops, plants his foot, T steps, if you will, and is looking to break downhill also. It's the number one receiver running a stop. Martin takes it back 20 yards for a touchdown. At this point, my notes, I'm like, that group that's out on the field is worthy of more coverage. They're not going to get it, right? Even though so many players are flying around. TDs, unique situations on defense in terms of split sacks. They're not going to get it because now all of our attention is going to turn to, who's going to be on the 53-man roster when cut downs occur, I think 4 p.m. Monday. In any case, the Ravens offense did put up 2 touchdowns in the first half. 14-play opening drive, 12 of which were runs. That second drive for the Commanders, 52 or 53-yard missed field goal, and then Rush goes to work. A little bit of play action stuff on the second drive, excuse me. After he goes off the field, everything was drastically different with our offense. I have some player notes a little bit later in terms of guys that were impressive. Clearly, Tyler Loop, 3 for 3 field goals, 61-yarder that looked like it had some room to cap or to add on. I think he's 9 of 11 field goals in the preseason. Maybe it's 8 of 11, but I think it's 9 of 11. I do want to comment on the Commanders broadcast, which is the stream that I was watching. I enjoyed listening to Brian Mitchell. He just seems to be a guy who's just honest and lets it fly. Rod Woodson is very professional and he's enjoyable, but he's more calm. And I think he's balanced. Rod Woodson is very balanced. He'll give credit to the other team. Mitchell does so as well. I have to say that, but he's just direct. He just lets it fly. Right or wrong, he's going to say what he thinks he sees, and I thought that was really. Having said all that, if you watch the Commander stream, I don't know who the guy is that does their sideline interviews. It was a clown show. He was trying extremely hard to be hip or whatever with each player that he brought up. The first thing that came to mind after the first interview was, okay, maybe he's just huffing these guys up, puffing this particular player up. After the second one and the third one, the first thing that came to mind was, and this is going to date me here in terms of how old I am, is Kadeem Harrison's role in White Man Can't Jump. If you don't know, he's like basically Wesley Snipes' hype man, and that was the sideline interview guy. It was a borderline acting job. Best blocking tight end in the league. Hall of Fame this, Hall of Fame that. It almost seemed like, I'm sure this is not the case, but they couldn't get the Washington players to agree to do an interview during this preseason game unless he puffed them up in incredible fashion. But after the third one of those, I was laughing, and then our defense just keeps making plays. In this case, it was Jabo on the 4th and 1, the tackle for loss. This was an easy call from the standpoint of watching it after it occurred. But you have to say that the way that Washington runs their offense, whether Jaden Daniels is on the field or not, from someone who's rooting against them at times, it can be annoying because like it dink and dunk, if you will. Okay, there's zone read over here, and then there's an attached bubble or screen to the field. But they force you into that conflict on a large majority of their plays. You have to give them credit because A, they've got the athletic quarterback who can execute that and then punish you as the third option there, meaning either going to give it to the running back, throw it out to the field depending on the numbers, or possibly keep it at times in different orders. It's not always in the order that I just presented there. In this particular instance, the Ojabo tackle for loss, you see it happen, you're like, hey, why don't we just do that more often, right? Like, bring Ojabo, stunt him down on the running back, and then have the nickel blitz off the edge for the quarterback. You would say it's a misread for the quarterback because the end man, the edge defender, steps down for the running back. But really, the quarterback in this case has no good option in that there's someone assigned to the dive, the running back, Ojabo, who made the tackle for loss, and then the quarterback as well. At the time that this occurs, or thereafter, I should say, we're getting nothing accomplished offensively with Leary in the game. Just a borderline disaster. I think he finished with a pretty high percentage of can't exactly remember what it was, but it was like 3.1 yards per completion. In fact, or yards per attempt. Sorry. In the first half, Leary was 7 of 11 passing, but for only 20 yards. And in fact, I thought 3 of those were very late to running backs. Not crisp or smooth to me at all. We should be excited and happy about the way the defense played today, but man, there's something about that pick still from last year that really is for me, and you're welcome to have a different opinion than I do. First of all, or second of all, say, hey, I don't think this is really the time to bring it up after so many guys are playing their ass off on. But that's the way I see it. I will say that the pick six by Martin from the nickel position, I think it's just inside the 2 minute mark. It's 24-3. And at that point, my notes say, defensively, Zach Orr's got them operating on a different level than the offenses they're facing are up against. And I get it, right? Some people will say, well, they're facing third string guys. I think we have third string guys on the field at times too, right? Martin, Lowry, Higgins, all UDFAs. In fact, I believe Martin and Lowry as UDFAs got zero guaranteed. So that says a lot about what other options they had in the rest of the league. For them to go out and play and execute so many things just speaks, I think it speaks incredibly highly of what's going on every day at practice, what the coaches are instructing the players on, and then how the players are accepting the coaching, the instruction, well, and then going out and getting things against other teams second. And Mike Green only had one tackle, I think. He didn't really make his presence felt from a statistical standpoint. But first half, uh, 3 interceptions for the team, 2 sacks. Actually, it's not three, 2 interceptions. I guess the Simpson slash Buchanan. I think the Simpson sack, one of the Simpson sacks, excuse me, ends up being a fumble that Ham recovers. Ball pops up in the air as the quarterback appears to be trying to throw. I thought it was an interception at first, but 2 sacks, 3 quarterback hits, 5 PDs. This was a total destruction first half. And I reject it to say that when people say, hey, they're going against second and third stringers, you can look at our guys that are on the field, say they're in the same place, pretty much equivalent situation. The offensive guys they're going. Loop buried, I think, a 52-yarder from the left hash right before halftime to make it 27-3. After that, interception slash fumble that Ham caught in the air before hitting the ground. I think at halftime, the Ravens had only outgained Washington 162-150. So it's not like a huge disparity, right? But first of all, some of that was skewed a little bit by there was a 51-yard catch by their tight end, number 41. I'm not sure what exactly his last name is. Brian Mitchell mispronounced it as well, so I'll blame that on him. But we had brilliant pick six from Martin. Got a badass preseason. Great film put out there. Heck, I mean, is the film from some of our young DB? This is going to sound weird, but is the film from some of those guys too good? Meaning that you don't think there's 2 or 3 or 4 guys that if we release out there don't put on the initial 50 roster that someone's going to pick them up, put them on their 53. That's a very cool situation, right? So many players have taken advantage of the opportunity. It's been pure fun for me to watch from a defensive standpoint. I do think that Simpson. It surprised me that Simpson was on the field so much today, for real, because I thought he had put good film out in the limited exposure that he had in the preseason, and they gave him a lot of run. I think he played the entire first half or most of it. Finished with 6 tackles, 1.5 sacks. The pass defense that was intercepted by JAD, 2 quarterback hits. He looked like he was on another level, in my opinion. And then in the third quarter, really things didn't get any better for Washington. I guess I should say, Josh Johnson, the former Ravens quarterback, he comes out the opening third quarter drive, and it really followed a Washington Commanders script from what I know of their offense. If you're a Commanders fan who listened this long, I will link up in the description some film studies that I did of the Commanders offense. Before the Ravens played them last year in week 6 or 7, and then before the Lions played them in the divisional round. Detroit, of course, won. Of course, that was a game that was won by Washington. How complimentary, and I respect the offense that they run, but it's really a wide side of the field offense. You're going to look for a bubble, an attached bubble or screen to the field, and there's going to be a run concept, essentially an RPO or maybe a PRO if you want to call it. On that drive by Johnson, they converted a 3rd and 1, and then also converted a 4th and run. And if you look at the drive summary, it's like wide side, wide side, wide side, wide side. It still ends up being 27-3 in the third because that drive stalled just beyond midfield. Ravens actually got another stop on a 3-and-out, I think late third quarter, early fourth. And there's a point where we're only averaging 4 yards per play. In fact, we finished 3.7 for the game. But Washington has 7 drives. So truly remarkable in that they've got a high-level offensive coordinator. Those guys execute. And Zach Orr's group went out there and really dismantled them. For real, it's a complete defensive effort, even though the Commanders finished outgaining us 242-232. Some player notes are just overall observations. I don't know about you, but the stickiness of our guys, our DB's coverage and man, first of all, that was on display, right? They're in the right place at the right time, but also really smart zone drops. You're getting this complete ability to play whatever coverage Zach Orr wants. Almost like you think he could just pick a coverage blindly. And our guys are going to go out there and execute. I think it's generally been R2s against other people's twos or R3s against other people's. They just have a great, the secondary especially has a great understanding of routes. Their reaction to things is connected to the quarterback and wide receiver tandem. What those guys are doing, things well timed up. I think the DB group and coaches, they deserve a ton of credit, and we hope it carries over into the regular season, right? There's no reason to suspect that it won't. If guys on the second and third string are this connected and operating like this, you have to be excited about what our starters can. Like I said, Loop hit a 61 yarder, and I think that it's important for him to have had 11 or maybe it's only 10 field goal attempts because now they know what his ball does from certain distance. I would say if you have any golf experience, you'll get this. He's got a power fade from deep longer distances. He's got a power fade in that it's going to curl to the left a little bit for whatever reason. So we know what hash we need to be on depending on the distance. He was 3 of 3 today. I think overall for the preseason from 50 yards or longer, he's 5 of 6. To me, it's been quite impressive to see what he's done. And the Ravens identified where his kicks go and at what distance. I want to talk about Ruben Lowry for a moment. I did a video on him a couple of days ago. Welcome to check that out. I'll link it up in the description. So he finished with 7 tackles, 3 solos, made his case, final here. If you ask me, I think he's a lock. That's just my opinion. And that's just really because of the versatility and the effectiveness of his coverage, whether it's man or zone. Two plays that really stuck out for me from Ruben Lowry's standpoint. Fourth possession for Washington in the second quarter. And once again, the ball's on the right hash, so they're running an attached bubble or a screen to the field, with the running back running it into the boundary. I mean, it's like clockwork. It's simple, but it's effective. Lowry blitzes off the edge. The quarterback reads it. I think Hartman was still in. Hartman throws the bubble to the field. He reacted to the nickel blitz. That's what their quarterbacks are trained to do, and they do a good job of it. Well, Lowry reacts to the ball crossing his face, putting his foot in the ground, turning and running, and he gets in on the tackle. The tackle is out there near the top of the numbers to the other side to the wide side of the field. I thought it was great pursuit, illustrated his change of direction, his effort, his commitment to getting to the football no matter where it is. Same possession, I believe. He's in the game, and there's a big pass play to 41, the tight end, and Lowry tracks him down. I think it's a 51 or 52-yard gain. There's a lot happening on here that I'll talk about. One of which is, Buchanan as a pass coverage guy, he is just absolutely locked onto the quarterback in zone. There is no ability to recognize routes at all. Now, is he going to quote stop the tight end on here? No, but the window is so wide open that Sam Hartman or even Devin Leary could hit that tight end in stride. Yeah, I think it's Tampa misses a tackle on that play. Lowry tracks him down. Maybe it was Lowry that missed the initial tackle, but I don't think so. Those 2 plays, I think, occur on the same drive, the fourth possession in the second quarter, and we end up limiting the Commanders to a field goal. Lowry's just a guy who shows up at the ball in good relationship, if you ask me, and it's a really stark contrast from a coverage standpoint, how efficient guys like him and even Keon Martin, who's way down the list in terms of our nickel defenders, are compared to a guy like Buchanan, inside linebacker. The level of instruction there seems to be different in terms of what we see. Leary did finish 17 of 23 passing, so a decent percentage, but only 71 yards. It's tough to imagine how you could be at 3.1 yards per pass. Real quick, while I was doing the action video or getting this thing produced, I just went back and looked at like 8 or 10 or 12 preseason games, and it was tough to find another quarterback at 3.1 yards per pass. I want to reiterate it. That pick from a year ago is very confusing to me and many others. The good thing for today is at least Leary didn't turn it over. He didn't take any sacks. I just feel like that we could have done a lot better there in terms of what we were trying to get accomplished, and what we have now is a third string quarterback. I know that position is limited though because of the way the NFL structures the rosters and what you're able to do as a front office, and essentially only retain 2 quarterbacks. Simpson, badass. It was a split sack with him and Buchanan. When they're on the field together, I do want to explain something. When Simpson and Buchanan are on the field together at the same time, Simpson is the will linebacker, Buchanan is the Mike. So they're not competing with each other. It's a totally different position. Buchanan seems to be one of those guys that's not athletic enough to play the will, in my opinion, from a coverage standpoint. Simpson plays to the boundary. He's a will. Simpson's not a Mike. So for who's going to be kept here at the inside linebacker position, you got to keep that in mind that they're looking for another Mike to back up Roquan. Maybe that's Hummel. Higgins, not athletic enough to play will either. Buchanan is athletic enough based on testing score, not based on what we see on the field. Although he did spend some time at will linebacker at Cowboys. Look, Buchanan played better. He had 4 tackles, credited with a half a sack. Like Cooper Rush, been very solid the last 2 weeks for most of his throws. Counting the Cowboys and Commanders games, he's 25 of 35 passing. Did have 2 interceptions against the Cowboys, one, in fact, against the Colts in the opener. I get it. There's a lot of high level football analysts out there who are kind of getting ahead of things. He's an extremely reliable backup. You could do a whole lot worse than Cooper Rush as your backup. Man, he did go 5 for 5 today. Make some really nice decisions. It was a good cameo across those 2 possessions in County. But I can't help but think that our backup quarterback situation is relatively our weakest spot as well as offensive from a depth standpoint. Getting back to Orr's defense and then relating that to the 53-man roster cutdowns. Everyone knows that's going to be tremendous, exciting, but also disappointing because of some good players that are released. So the Ravens defense against the pass in the preseason, 53 of 101 passing, so obviously a little bit less than 50% completion percent. 522 yards allowed, 51 today on the completion to the tight end number 41. And then as well as that, the 3rd and 8 last week that was completed to, I think it was Moreno Cropper against Tampa. Out of those 101 passes, 5 interceptions. Some of these guys have put up great film. We've enjoyed watching. Look, it would not surprise me if there's people out there on social media or Ravens fans or even in our Discord who are saying, I think we might keep 3 UDFAs. I mean, you've got 2 DBs, Ruben Lowry and Keon Martin. I think that I'm taking Lowry and I'm saying he's on the 53, I should say. And then I really like Chandler Martin, the inside linebacker, but he hasn't done as much as Jay Higgins has in the preseason and during training camp. It's entirely possible that there's people out there who think all 3 of them could make it. Of course, that depends on how many running backs. As soon as you keep that 4th running back, then that changes the dynamic completely, and you're looking at 1 UDFA or maybe 2 if they want to go Lowry and Higgins. I will say this, and Ali's been better here this preseason, I think, than last year. Last 2 weeks, he's run well, in my opinion. He's been bouncing a lot of stuff, especially duo, but rewind a year ago, that's what he came to Baltimore wanting to do anyways, bounce pretty much everything outside. Now it just seems like at times they're just calling plays that kind of suit him a little bit more in terms of what he's naturally going to do. But in the preseason, I think he's at 134 yards across the 3 games. Might be 37 carries. Maybe 36, somewhere in that range. So not great from a yards per carry standpoint, but he has been in the game a few times where we have not had our best look out there at offensive line. I've already fielded this thought in Discord. It would not surprise me if there's some discussion of letting Ali and Johnson both go on the initial 53. With the thought that I believe Johnson is a veteran who doesn't have to clear waivers, and I may not be understanding that correctly. I wasn't able to hang out on the Discord enough to really follow up on that conversation. I think it was Jen and a couple of other people. But if Johnson's got the same dynamic as Brent Urban we know is going to get released from the 53, but he doesn't have to clear waivers, and he's already got a handshake deal with Baltimore's front office anyway. I mean, what happened? What would be your perspective if if the Ravens front office is like, hey, we'll let both of those guys go, and whichever one doesn't get claimed, we'll keep that guy? Did D'Ernest Johnson look drastically different from Rasheen Ali to you? Maybe not as explosive, right? He's been around in the league a whole lot more. If you had to get down to that situation where you have to play a Ali or a D'Ernest Johnson, would you trust them about the same? I haven't seen enough film. It's a small sample size of D'Ernest Johnson, but he was a good football player before in the league. I think it's something to think about. In any case, I really have no opinion that's solidified right now on who should be on the initial roster. There's a part of me that thinks the three running backs we have, Henry, Justice Hill, and Mitchell, is more than enough from a talent standpoint. You get into the middle of a game and one guy's hurt, now all of a sudden you only have two. So I understand the need to maybe keep four, especially if the fourth guy can play some special teams. My final thought would be it's a huge blessing to have this many guys on defense, especially the UDFAs, the 40 UDFAs that have demanded consideration to being kept. I also recognize there'll be some Ravens fans who say, well, that's because we focus on defense so much. We draft so much defense. All four of those guys we're talking about are UDFAs. We did draft Rasheen Ali, obviously drafted Justice Hill. Keaton Mitchell was a UDFA as well. I think that I'm not sure that I co signed that opinion or that criticism, but I recognize there's people out there who hold it. And in their mind, the conclusions they've come up with that the Ravens, focus too much on defense and not offense. I recognize there's people who have that opinion, and I really wouldn't argue too much with them because I've had those thoughts before. In any case, an amazing day from Zach Orr's defense once again to finalize a brilliant preseason for those guys, allowing 0 touchdowns, 5 interceptions, and really only about 5.21 or 5.20 yards per pass attempt overall. 101 overall attempts, 522 yards. Really remarkable in that 100 of those 522 yards have come on 2 plays. The 3rd and 8 that we got hit with last week where Tampa gets beat deep, and then the 41-yarder to the tight end this week by the Command. That's why I think this season, Zach Orr and his coaching staff deserve all the credit in the world for having those guys prepared, running our plays, and executing pretty much everything. In any case, you guys let me know what you think of the video in the comment section. Some of my thoughts, particularly about the 4 UDFAs that have played well enough to at least deserve consideration, as well as the 4 running back situation that Dearness Johnson may have impacted with his effort over the last 2 or 3. Appreciate you guys' time. If you think other Ravens fans would enjoy my final thoughts on the preseason and especially this 30-3 win over the Commanders, please consider grabbing a link to this video, sharing it out on social media to help this content get more reach.